I suck at jujitsu. How do I suck less at jujitsu?
I guess to suck less.
The diabolical leader of the
And we're set. All right, Glyn, jump in. Just start going.
Yeah, so we were talking about getting into breathwork. So I basically did nothing about it for years and years and years. I think like I started jiu-jitsu something like 2003, around then. Met my wife around the same, not that long after I met my wife. She'd done a bit of yoga and basically she'd suggested to me that I should work on my breathing. And as you said just now, like, you know, it's like, yeah, you don't even train. I'm not remotely interested.
What belt are you, right?
What belt are you, right? It's like, what belt are you? You're not even a white belt, right? And you're telling me I need to improve my breathing? This is ridiculous. And obviously I'd seen Rickson do the choke stuff, you know, do all the breathing, but I'm like, yeah, what's that got to do with fighting? Like, I want to learn the groundwork. That was always the thing with Rickson. I was like, I had it in my head, like the groundwork was the thing that made him, you know, what he was. And so 2017, I get an email, comes through, just a mail shot, SBG, Rickson Gracie's coming to Portland, Oregon. So a lot of people don't realize that SBG, they think of Conor McGregor, they think of John Kavanagh, they think of Gunnar Nelson, maybe Forrest Griffin and so on. But what they don't realize is a lot of the senior black belts within SBG, like Matt Thornton, the head, John Frankel's like 5th degree as well. Like they got their blue belts under Rickson, wanted to keep training under Rickson, and Rickson kind of after, you know, his son died, kind of disappeared. And so they all ended up, I think, going their kind of separate ways, really. And so Rickson kind of made this sort of comeback. And so my wife said, you should go. You know, you've always said you want to train with Rickson. It's like Portland, Oregon. It's like 24 hours getting there. And, you know, you're going to drop some money going there. But I was like, she's like, no, you should go. So I went. And I remember getting on the plane and thinking, I hope he doesn't do that self-defense stuff, because
Where were you leaving from?
from Manchester, England.
Okay.
So you do about three changes in flight on the way, right? And so yes, it's about 24 hours, I think, to get there. So yeah, so he does the seminar. There's like 180 people there. They're people from Australia. They've come from all over the world to Portland, Oregon to train with Rickson. And so he does a 3-hour seminar. The first hour, he just talks about breathing. That's basically all he does. And then, you know, to my self-defense concern, he then, out of all the people, picks me to do all the demos with. And he does that thing with the bass. And like, as I was saying to you, I mean, I've sparred with judo Olympians. I've done quite a bit of judo. I've competed in judo. I kind of, you know, thought like I kind of understood all this kind of area, like in terms of him pulling and pushing and all of that. And yeah, it's like it reminds me of that thing about where, I don't know if you've ever heard the story about the guy that there's a kid that basically had wrestled in college and decides to go and challenge Dan Gable on Dan Gable's porch to a wrestling match.
I have not. Tell me.
So he basically bangs on Dan Gable's door one evening. Dan Gable answers the door, and this kid says to him, oh, you know, Mr. Gable, you know, it's always been my dream to wrestle you, and I wonder if you'd wrestle with me. And this is like, I mean, I think Dan Gable was like about 60 at the time, right? And Dan Gable's like, yeah, I'll wrestle with you. And the guy's like, oh, right, you know, when? And he goes, right now. And so the guy's like, really? He's like, yeah. And they lied to the guy. They said to him, you know, what happened? And the guy was like, it was like God had placed his hands upon me. He just got like mauled. Dan Gable just mauled him. Like the guy's like had nothing against, like nothing you could do. Dan Gable just did whatever he wanted, and it actually felt like that with Rickson. Like his base really is incredible. He does feel impossible to move when you push and pull him. And so that was like the first thing that was like, hey, maybe I don't actually know as much as I think I do about judo, right? Because he feels ridiculously immovable, and he was just dragging me around. And like I was trying to resist. You don't want to be disrespectful, but I was trying to resist, and I just felt like I was all over the place. And so that kind of got me, but I still did nothing about breath work until about 2020, when I think it was when COVID happened, and you suddenly find yourself with time on your hands. And I started getting into all the Henry Akers. So since Rickson, I'd become very much into the whole like learning Rickson's jiu-jitsu, and it felt like to a large extent trying to relearn jiu-jitsu for me. I know you were talking about like pressure
Hmm.
I think it was on the last podcast, and like trying to play that pressure game. And is this realization that actually a lot of the time I've been, I was a black belt then. I've been a black belt 3, 4 years, I think, when I did that with Rickson. And like you just get this realization that actually like a lot of what I was doing was kind of inefficient and kind of isometric and squeezing and burning a lot of muscle power. And yeah, and as you're getting older as well, it's like you've got less of it, so that doesn't make sense either. So I said to Henry Akins, who I kind of like tried to almost continue the Rickson study through him and through John Frankel and Matt Thornton. Like they're all training with Henry a lot, and I get over to Henry when I can to his training camps, but I've got all his online material as well. And I said to Henry, I said, Rickson, what did he teach you about breath work? And Henry was like, well, we knew he did it, but like it was never really something he formally coached to anybody, um, which was kind of interesting. But he said, I've kind of gone down this route myself, and I recommend you go and speak to Belisa Vranich. So I look up Belisa Vranich. She does some privates and whatever. I know she did an online breathwork certification she just launched, and so I just signed up for it.
Did she write a
And
book?
yeah, she's got a few books out. The latest one is Breathing for Warriors,
Okay.
and she's done an instructional with Baz Rutten on it as well.
Okay.
He does a lot with Baz, and then Baz has got his breathing device that he markets as well.
Okay, cool.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. So kind of started there really, and then one of the things that's kind of interesting about her is she actually gets you to go and study other breathwork instructors. So she actually gets you to go and look at the oxygen advantage, look at where Wim Hof, learned some of his breath work as well as a guy called Stanislav Grof that I think she kind of credits. Um, a lot of Wim's stuff to Stanislav Grof. He's still around. I think he's kind of like an academic, but I think he's also a psychologist. And she was actually a child psychologist. And how she got into it was so her PhD, I think, is child psychology, and she'd have children referred to her. And what she couldn't help but notice, like, forget the psychology side of it, was none of them could sit still, and like their breathing was really distorted. And that was kind of where she came at it
It's
from.
very interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, this is another thing I could talk to you about now, which is kind of coming full circle. So I've done the certification, I got the Fanatics thing out at the moment, and
What's that called? What
it's
was
called Breathe to Win on BJJ Fanatics. And so my pitch on this, someone actually said to me earlier, well, what's the difference between what you're doing and everyone else's breathwork videos? I think the thing I'm trying to do right now that I've not seen anybody else do, and I'm sure somebody has done it somewhere, but most of the time what I see the breathing for martial arts stuff is basically a yoga. It's kind of like yoga, but like they're not taking a position and saying like, this is how you start applying it. And this is where you're going to see that you suck at breathing. Because I think
Mhm,
one of the big problems most people have with breathing, exactly like I was, um, is that you think your breathing's good.
mhm,
That's the fundamental challenge. And what I've even found is that I found that people who like we had a black belt come down to our gym, and we'd been talking about breath work, and he said, "Oh, I'm also a qualified yoga instructor." He kind of shut the conversation down. And then one of our blue belts was sparring with him. And this blue belt's a power lifter, right? I'm
mhm.
not like making, but like he's a power lifter. He's actually a pretty good technical blue belt, and he's strong as hell.
Uh-huh.
And he puts this black belt in scarf hold, and the black belt tapped immediately. And it wasn't because he was cranking his neck or arm locking him, he tapped to pressure.
Uh-huh.
And so even though this guy has some theoretical knowledge about yoga, um, it didn't make any odds. Now, that's not to say that everyone who's done yoga, I had a brown belt, and there was an SPG brown belt came over recently who's done a yoga certification. I got him in the Soul Stealer, and he was fantastic. He's like one of the best I've seen in it. Like
Uh-huh.
he didn't get out. He actually, it was all very gracious. He said afterwards, I didn't get out, and in the end, it's like clock's gone, and we had to stop somewhere. And like I knew you weren't going to let me out, but like he took it, and
For
so
context, for anyone listening who's not cool, the Soul Stealer is
the scarf hold.
it's
Henry
scarf hold.
Akins
It's
version.
scarf hold, but it's different. Jiu-jitsu is nasty. Your partner thinks the mats are swampy, and somebody always brings that surprise of mystery rash to open mat. That's why I spray Full Guard from Combat Sports Hygiene. It kills staph, it kills ringworm, and it is good for your skin biome. There is no burn, there's no alcohol, it's just hypochlorous acid. That is the same stuff that your body makes to fight infection. Full Guard just took it and supercharged it. So you can spray it before class, you can spray it after class, spray it mid-roll if your partner smells like expired milk. So just go to sportshygiene.com and use code ISUCK for 10% off your purchase. Be clean, my friends. It's not the same. It's not the scarf hold that you've learned, but continue.
And I think the bit where I really realized I'd kind of definitely got something was I wanted to go in Henry's Soul Stealer or his version of the scarf hold, because I've seen him tap like black belts out with that. I've seen it. He put it in one of his promotional videos, like how long could this black belt last in it? And I think it was like 6 seconds or something. But it's just like tapping, and he's not cranking their neck. He's just putting pressure through their diaphragm.
Yeah.
And and so I went to Costa Rica to train. We did the Henry's session. He did like fantastic, like 2 hours. Then we all started sparring. He wasn't my first spar. It was boiling hot, which I'm not used to. And I realize I'm kind of building the story here. But like it's sweltering at that Hero Academy down there. There's no aircon. It's just open. Yeah, and he gets me in it. So we're rolling, and he gets me in that thing, and I'm like, I'm not going to tap here, no matter what. I'm not going to tap in this position. And he really tried to put it on. He went for it, and like I was just like, I'm not going to tap to this. I just sat.
Holy smokes!
And so he then mounted and just arm locked me.
So
I don't want to give anyone like an impression of like, and then I bridged him over and rolled him, and
hey,
I won't say anymore. Like, no, I still got wrecked. But
that's an impressive feat. If you felt the Soul Stealer, holy smokes, that's an impressive one. I was Uki the last time that I went to his seminar, and it was a 2-dayer. And I had a sore throat from being, what is it called? Hammer choked. Literally a sore throat. My Adam's apple was underneath my right ear. And then
that is gruesome. It felt like he ripped my throat out when he did that to me. It was horrific.
Then he says, the next day we get in and he says, now we're going to do top side control. And me and Andy Stumpf had been the Ukis the whole time. And we looked at each other, and the whole conversation was like, I think he's going to use you, man. No. He's going to use you. And he used both of us, and it was horrible. We were both a miserable experience. Anyway.
It is horrible. And there's no doubt that prior to like studying this, I would have definitely tapped in that position in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever. It would have just been, oh my God, I'm going to die. And one of the things I try to say to people in this is like, when you're doing it is like, if you think you're going to get injured, then you should definitely tap. And we progressively build this up. And I go through this in the instructional about how you do it with people. And like, so you start with like a really light scarf, or you could even like start with knees on the mat, build people's confidence up, and just practice how you need to breathe for being in that position. And then you just build it up. It's like to me, it's like a, resistance work, right?
Yeah.
So you just gently build it up. You tap out whenever you feel uncomfortable, but you build it up, and you do all the flexibility work as well. There's like, Belisa has this thing that she says, if you do one stretch each day, you do the intercostal, and that's basically, I'm quite lazy. So that's kind of about what I now do. If I do anything, some days I don't, but like I've spent so much time in that position now, I kind of feel like I know what I can get away with. So there's an element, you've got to be careful, because there's an element of transfer. I want this to transfer to other positions. I don't want to be just good at this and then I get triangle choked and then I don't apply any of it. I found that like doing things like Valsalva and triangle chokes is a game changer almost no matter what your triangle choke defense is.
Which is pursed lips?
It's kind of more for me when I'm talking about Valsalva, like it's kind of like, I'm just basically saying, just like, they hold the entire thing and they like, right? Do what you feel comfortable, but like as you get better at this and you get comfortable in like Soul Stealers and you build this up, what you'll find is that like you can play around with it, but you just basically want to fill your belly and your chest up completely while you're defending a triangle, while you're performing your escape. So I get people to try whatever triangle defense they prefer, and I try to get them to feel the difference, both when they're applying a triangle, or you could do this with darces, you can do it with anacondas, but feel the difference when the guy tries to defend, if he just exhales while he's doing it, versus if you just completely fill up. And
Okay.
when you fill up, you structurally are just so much stronger. So this is
That makes sense. That makes I
right.
can think to a thought of like, okay, I'm gonna disconnected build my base. I'm not gonna do that with my lung capacity depleted.
Right.
I'm puffed when I do that, I guess, right?
100%.
Okay.
100%. And so I've never seen anybody like I see all these amazing triangle defenses, go and get Hodges, Garcias, all these different guys will show amazing triangle defense. But like nobody ever that I've seen says, as you do this, I want you to just blow yourself up. Like, I know a bunch of women have just walked in hot women have just walked in the room and you're filling up that sudden, you're putting on 20 pounds of muscle, right? That's
Oh
that's
yeah.
basically what you want. You want to fill the belly, fill the chest, fill the whole thing up as you're fighting like crazy in there trying to escape. And then try just exhaling and fighting like crazy. And you feel like it feels like when you're doing a triangle on somebody who you make them exhale while they do it, it's like crushing an empty Coke can
Hmm.
versus trying to crush one that's full. It's just completely game changing. Um,
And so you're not holding your breath, correct, in this, or are you?
I don't want, yeah, I don't want anyone to like end up suing me because they held their breath for 20 seconds and something pops in their brain, right?
Listen, this is for
But
educational purposes only. This is a perfect time to
100%.
mention it. But
But like, yeah, I mean, at some point you're going to have to exhale. It's not a perfect thing. But like, if you contrast that with like a lot of people have seen Rickson like passing guard, and like Hoyler does it as well, where they pass guard. You can see they've like exerted themselves, and then you see them exhaling.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
see, and you hear that exhale when when they're going fast, they're like,
yeah,
and that's like open positions. And
yeah.
so I think if you start really looking at what these guys are doing in closed positions, there's no doubt. You watch Rickson like when he's like, you got nothing type thing when he does his self-defense things. He's got like one of the black belts trying to triangle him or whatever, and he's like, no, no, come on, triangle me, man. Come on.
Hmm.
And it's like but his whole body is inflated when he's doing that. There's no way he may be talking a little bit, which is an exhale, but like you can see he's puffed up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? You see good black belts brace, but like no one talks about that happening. It's like
Yeah,
I think they just instinctively know.
yeah.
Um,
You develop that over time, probably.
right, 100%. I think they just do it.
That's super interesting. So in the instance for you of is the Valsalva breath the same for Soul Stealer, or is that a different?
What I find is I try to so fundamentally I think you need to fill up because they're going to try and usually there's a crank coming at some point on your
Yes,
neck,
yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
So you do like the more you can just fill up and like a bracing bridge. And when you bridge as well, like just generally bridge, like if I'm doing the Upa or whatever, filling your belly up definitely helps on bridging versus trying to do it on an exhale. So again, these are bracing positions where I'm kind of going hell for leather, right? Trying to get out. What I find with the Soul Stealer is you can actually, one of the things I've started doing because guys are getting so good at defending is I shake them, right? And the reason I shake them is it makes it very hard for them to get a full inhale
That makes
like into
sense.
their body. And that's what actually makes people give up is when you break their breath pattern, they feel like they can't get enough air in. And so what I try to do is when I'm squeezed, I try and let air out. So when I feel the guy tries to put it on me, I will let go.
Yeah.
And so my main thing is just keep your hands together and just focus on trying to relax in that position. Like the only tension really is me trying to keep my hands connected. That's really kind of it. And I'm filling up and I'm trying to be relaxed.
Okay.
That's kind of it. I mean, some of this is kind of feel and you're getting it, and maybe exactly what I say isn't what you'll find when you get in there, but like you definitely when they try and squeeze you, you need to exhale. Because if you try and inhale, you'll find it super tough. So you're trying to breathe with their energy. That's kind of how I think about it. Like when Henry's putting that on, when he goes to really squeeze me and I see his face start to go, that's when I've got to like let go and just like let all the air out. And then you try and pick when you're going to breathe in. There's like a pattern to it.
That's interesting.
I've spent a lot of time. I've spent too much time in that position. I love it. But I'm conscious that like you get knee on belly, you need to be able to adjust as well. There are technical elements of it without doubt that you just get used to, and things that I'm sure there is like things I'm not clear that I'm doing when I'm in that position, just because I've spent so much time playing with it. Um, but I absolutely love it because I feel like it makes you aware of just how badly you breathe most of the time. And like, I can roll with people who are much lower belt. And in the past, I would have just tapped them again and again and again and again. But like now, it's like, how little can I do? How much can
Yeah.
I get away with? And Henry actually said this in terms of like, because one of the things I find fascinating about Henry is how relaxed he is when he rolls with people.
Hmm.
And he said like for a few years, he felt like he was going backwards because everyone still tries to murder you. They don't, most people don't care about being relaxed. They just, it's competition. Even when you're in the training environment, it's still competition for them. They're still trying to tap you. And he said he felt like he went backwards. And I feel for a little bit that happens. But then all of a sudden, your jiu-jitsu actually becomes just way better than it ever would have been had you carried on the same course of just trying to smash everyone, which is why I did for most of my jiu-jitsu career. So,
That's really cool. I loved Henry's. It was such a Henry Facebook comment to comment under your under the release of your instructional. It was something along the lines of, yes, breathing is important, I guess you could say, or something, something just in that Henry tone that he hits you with. Like if you've trained with him,
right.
you
Yeah, yeah,
know, you've been shamed. And
yeah.
yeah, I just lost at Master Worlds. I lost in the second round, and I lost by an advantage in the last seconds of the match. And it's the number one guy in my division. And afterwards, I go actually and do a private with Henry because he's in Vegas.
Right.
And I literally get in. He says, "Let me see the loss." I'm like, okay. And show him. We are about 25 minutes, 22 minutes into the private. I have yet to ask a single question. We are through 22 seconds of my video, and he has just been, Josh, why didn't you just do this? I'm like, I don't know, Henry. I
Right.
didn't I didn't know to do that. I was doing my best. And he keeps just roasting. And then at one point he looks and he says, "So this is the number one guy in your division?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, he's not very good at all now, is he?" And and I was like, "No, sir.
What do
I
you
guess he's
say?
no, sir. Guess he's not. I'm sorry.
Right.
Sorry. Should have beat him. My bad." And yeah, and we're back on it. And I'm like, man, we got to the end of it, and I'm like, well, I have a lot to work, and I don't think I asked a single question. I think I just sucked bad enough that I didn't even need to. It's just like, nah, this is wrong. This is not it. This is not it. But
I have chess reviews like that, so I play chess, and there's a grandmaster. I have like reviews of my games, and like even when I win, playing other students. So he sets the tournaments up, so they're all his students. But even when I win, he's like, "Oh no, that's a very bad move by SB Glyn. My user ID is SB Glyn. That's a very bad move by SB Glyn. This is an even worse move by the other guy. Oh yeah, we'll just leave this game here." And I've like beat a guy who's like I beat a guy who's like 2200 on Leech. Good for me. Like that's
uh-huh,
extremely good.
that is
And like
extremely good.
I'm hoping he's gonna like I lose this guy all the time. He mauls me. He's like a professional chess coach, but that's his day job.
Uh,
but like the grandmaster's there and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna leave this game." And I'm thinking, God, this is like the one time I've beaten him. And I was hoping like Nigel's gonna I even looked it back on the engine and the engine says, "Oh yeah, I played a pretty, good game." Nigel's like, "Yeah, we'll just leave this game here. I don't think there's anything useful going on." I'm like,
There's no this is no real person would make these moves. So yep, I get what's your chess elo?
so on Rapid this year, I hit 1723, but I'm floating around 1560 at the moment, and I'm something like on lead chess, I'm something like 1838 at the minute.
Okay.
So I'm rapid. So
I
yeah,
believe highest on the show that I know of is Greg Souders, which was he
right.
doesn't play anymore. He's 1700, I believe.
Oh wow.
So you might want to call him out and call him out on social media and be like, hey, yeah, your coaching strategies are fine, whatever, but I would crush you in chess. Let him know. Play me in rapid, bro.
I'd be interested to see how the ecological approach works in chess because I'm unaware anyone's using it. But
Oof,
there you
that's a good
go.
question. That might be
Maybe a shot fired there. I don't know, but
yeah, that might be a podcast number 2 question for him.
right.
See what he thinks about that. Most jiu-jitsu gear feels like it was designed by someone who's never trained. And it smells like it was designed by someone who's never showered. That's why I use Datsusara. My gi, my backpack, my fanny pack, they are all made from hemp. It's ridiculously comfortable, it lasts forever, and it doesn't hold on to the stink of regret from last night's no-gi class. Even better, the gi is weirdly hard to grip. It's kind of like you're grappling while covered in butter. Don't ask me how I know what it feels like to grapple in butter. Instead, go to dsgear.com and use promo code ISUCK for 10% off. And you'll stop wearing gear that feels like a sweaty, stinky duffel bag and start wearing the coolest gear in jiu-jitsu. Check them out at dsgear.com. Have you ever finished a roll and thought, what was I even doing out there? Same. We have all felt that way. And that is why you need Jiu-Jitsu for Imbeciles, a free course from Rob Bernacki that explains Jiu-Jitsu so clearly, it makes you wonder how you ever got confused in the first place. I am telling you, it is like a TED Talk for people who suck at Jiu-Jitsu. And that is why they're giving it totally free to I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners. So go to bjmentalmodels.com/ISuck and download it for free right now before you throw away another roll chasing guillotines from bottom side control.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting because there's so I'm a member of a thing called Circle Chess, which is so India now has like the dream team, if you like. This is related to breathwork. But they have this kind of dream team of guys now. They've got so many grandmasters and they're all super young. And so like Gukesh is now the world champion. Now Magnus doesn't want to defend the title anymore. Gukesh has won. And his coach is the head of this thing called Circle Chess, which I'm a member of. And the chess, like he's kind of like the Danaher now. He's got so many of these guys coming through that are all winning. We're just winning, winning, winning. That like he's got this reputation now as the guy, and he's super interesting to listen to. And one of the things he makes everybody do each week who's learning chess under him is a chess psychology session. And it's all basically breath work. And this relates directly to jiu-jitsu. So the guy who coaches breathwork said that I don't know if you've ever done any like transaction analysis at all. Like if you ever go for therapy, you'll do transaction analysis. It's this kind of like you know, in any conversation you're having, there's kind of like there's three ego states. There's the child, which is like, Josh, I hate you. How could you be so cruel to me? I can't believe how you said all those things that hurt my feelings. That's kind of a child position, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm an adult, it would be more, we're trying to be adult about some subject, obviously, and blah blah blah. And then there's the parent, which often becomes a critical parent. It's how your parents talk to you when you're telling you off, or when you're really telling somebody off from a position of authority, as opposed to like a child complaining at you. So you have these three ego states, and what this chess, I mean, he's a chess player as well, but he's the resident psychologist in the school. Said is like, as you go through a match, these three ego states will appear to you, and the only thing you can do about the child when you've blundered, the guy's just in jiu-jitsu, the guy's just passed your guard and you've conceded the points, like that voice is going to kick in your head almost certainly, like, oh, it'll be either critical parent, you did it all wrong, blah 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 blah, Or, it's kind of like that where you were talking about like the guy who got, tapped to pressure and, burst into tears over it. That's child state has come out, right? And these things happen, how much we contain them, but like, and we're trying to be an adult all the time. We're trying to talk to ourselves in a manner that's like positive, and how you talk to a friend, right? Who's in that situation. Hey, Josh, oh, you're going to get the guard back, blah, 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 whatever it might be, right? But that's how, I'm going to get my guard back. I'm going to get the underhook. I'm going to get back out here. I'm going to get blah, blah, blah. That's adult. And so he said, like, the only way really to manage this is basically breath work. When you get that child kicks in, or that critical parent. And he said, and also he said, when you're actually preparing for your match, you're thinking about what your strategy is, whatever game you play. Critical parent, like the parent always comes in because you're actually telling yourself what you're going to do. So anything where your ego state is telling you what you're going to do, you're actually parent at that point. And he said, you have to be careful that doesn't. So they have this whole thing of like actually visualizing it's all gone wrong, taking your breath, blah blah blah. And Vishnu, who's the Danaher guy in all this, he's like, I won't coach a chess player who isn't relaxed. He's like, I can't coach him. It's a waste of my time. So I found that interesting because I think in chess, yeah, people do get tense, but I think if he was like trying to coach, like he'd be shocked, like seeing a jiu-jitsu match, how tense people are even in practice.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, how can you practice here? Like, how can you learn when you're that tense? You'd be like, your heart rate's just so high. And so I found it very interesting that like one of like the top chess schools, like the top coaches in the world champion, has breath work in the weekly sessions as well. And then you've got like Rickson talking about breath work. Now Hodges talking about breath work recently, saying that I think he's started training with, I think he's been training with Miles actually, but like on the breath work side, I think it was Miles.
I
I
know
may
I've
be
seen them in video. I know I've seen Miles doing stuff with him.
right, cool. So it is. I didn't know if I was giving Miles credit he didn't deserve. I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
We can talk bad about Miles if you need to. I mean,
Yeah.
it'll be perfect.
Yeah, no, I love Miles. So I'm seeing Miles. I'm going to catch up with him and see where he's at. Because for him, this is a full-time job. Whereas for me, I've got an AI company. I've got the gym. I've got lots of stuff. And breath work is just a big part of how I go about jujitsu. But like he's like into it on another level again in terms of like managing his HRV rates and all these different factors. But like, yeah, Hodges like, yeah, I'd done this. I forget the quote he used, but like it was along the lines of I think I would have been even more successful, or I may have stayed competing longer. It was something along those lines. But like it was like, yeah.
That's really interesting. That is it. Okay, let me ask you this. Besides obviously buying your instructional on BJJ Fanatics, where would be a good place to start for someone who's heard breath work, and then like, I don't know what any of this means. I still don't understand any of it. Where would be a place to start that I could actually see a result?
So yeah, so Belisa Vranich has I think the video's better than books. Like lots of people ask me books. I just don't know that people take action with books. And also I've seen the difference between Belissa's books, as good as I think her Breathing for Warriors book is, but like the actual instructional, like you can't be actually seeing somebody do these things. Um, rather than you're trying to imagine them. I think video makes people do more. So her stuff, I think Miles Lucas is really good as well. So I've actually been like playing around with the pranayama based on what Miles has said, and it's actually pretty easy to do. Yeah, so that's basically the Rickson thing that he does in choke. I was kind of surprised with his instruction how much easier I found it than there's lots of people trying to teach you how to do Rickson's breath on YouTube, but his is pretty simple, and it worked. I started playing with it the other day. So yeah, I think he's well worth a look. I think Wim Hof's material on like flexibility. So he has a course called The Power of the Mind. I think it's his most expensive course. And he one of the things that was really game changing in that was like flexibility work, like how you should breathe when you're trying to like stretch.
Hmm.
Um, so he was explaining that, and I realized this, like, I've been to yoga classes, and guys, whenever you watch guys stretch, their faces start contorting, and they like, even if they can't touch their toes, they really try to touch their toes like hard.
Hmm.
And it doesn't help. I think a lot of the time you're at yoga, there's a lot of women, they're there. You're like the one guy or the one or two guys, and you're
You're
like,
like,
you want to
man,
look like you can.
yeah, I want to show these chicks how flexible I am.
Right, I'm
Then
super
they'll love me.
flexible.
You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah, and they're almost always hot as well, which I always think makes it work. You compete more when they're hot, right? So that you're there and you're straining away and you can barely touch your toes, but you're kind of forcing it. And at the end of it, you're no more flexible, right? You come out of it, I've felt a lot of time, I was like worse.
Hmm.
So what Hoff was basically doing was doing these breathwork patterns, and he's basically saying like, put yourself in the position of the stretch. Don't try to stretch at all. Like if you're trying to touch your toes, don't try and touch your toes. Like don't even bother trying. Literally just put yourself in there, do 40 big inhales, 40 big exhales, maybe go 60, maybe go 80, go as long as you want. And when you feel your body just kind of like you're just switching off, like at some point mentally, you just kind of drift off. He's like, your body's going to start stretching itself. And it's amazing how your body in that position just starts giving. And and he basically explained that it's the Golgi tendons, just you've got to relax them. The reason we're all straining trying to touch our toes or whatever the stretch might be, and the women aren't, like they've usually been doing it a long time. There's some arguments around they are more naturally more flexible, they have more hip movement, blah, blah, blah. But like they're not straining. And
Hmm.
so the Golgi tendons are actually then kicking in, basically saying like your body's preventing itself from injuring itself, is
Yeah.
what it took it. And so it's actually making it worse because you're tensing a muscle you're actually trying to relax,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of an oxymoron and it defeats the whole purpose. And so I started doing that after like doing the Wim Hof course, and it was like, yeah, wow, that just works, and you really do get a really nice deep stretch, and the next day you kind of feel it, and you've got a bit more range, and I'm not saying like people can get into a thing of like I don't want hyper, mobility and so on, and it's like, yeah, I get that. I'm not really doing it because I suddenly want to be, trying to Goga Plata you or whatever. I'm doing it in case like, you're passing my guard and my hamstring goes, right? Like it's kind of having a little bit more range. I'm not trying to rely on it. It's just like we all get caught in horrible positions, and it's like you've got a little bit more protection in your body there. You've got a little bit more give. Maybe a bit more time before you tap, and you just say, I need to tap here, right?
Yeah.
So you're just getting that little bit more in it. But yeah, I feel like with breath work, it's like you can take it in so many different ways. Getting back to sleep at night. There's the mental side of it. There's the side Belissa's talked about, that intercostal stretch. She said that like one of the major aging factors. I've not looked into this. I'm just taking her a word for it. But she said one of the major aging factors is as we age, our rib cage basically encloses itself on our lungs. So we actually lose capacity for our lungs to expand. And so as we get older, our rib cage moves in and in and in, and apparently we just at rest take in less and less oxygen. We just don't have the ability to move our diaphragms as much. And so she was saying that like from a longevity perspective, that intercostal stretch. So not only for the soul stealer and these, neon belly and just having a flexible rib cage. So we're just more relaxed in bad positions, but actually just for your overall health and longevity on the planet, doing intercostal stretches are huge, and your intercostals don't really get stretched in most exercise routines, and certainly not with the intensity of breath work that she has you do them, where she literally has you at like bursting point and I go through this on the instructional, but she has you at bursting point. Like you can't get any more air in the intercostal and you really want to give in. And that's actually that same voice that's saying to you in scaffold bottom, Glyn, you're gonna die. You're gonna die here if you don't tap.
Uh-huh.
You deserve to tap here. He's cranking your neck or whatever it might be, right? And afterwards, like, oh, was that a crank? Right, and it's like, no, it's just like you just can't breathe in scaffold, right? It's like that's kind of the reality. And you see all these people in earthquakes, right? They get dragged out after weeks of being under like a building, and they're still alive and breathing. And yet, like, you guys you get black belts, you can't do 8 seconds under scaffold, and they're coming out with excuses. And it's like, it's not you couldn't breathe, right? That's just not true.
The
Um,
the best excuse that I get with pressure taps, it's not even just the solar seal, just any pressure tap
right.
mount, just any time that you get good pressure on somebody, people will try to give you an arm because they don't want to tap to pressure, and then they'll
Yeah, they're like
tap.
that,
You
the
won't. Yeah,
Americana.
yeah. You won't take the arm, but then they'll tap, and then they'll get up and they'll grab their elbow. And be like, ooh, yeah, I was sore after that crank you had on my elbow there. Like, no, I didn't even touch your arm. What are you talking
Right.
about? Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
I think you may have done a great service for like the whole community by talking about this, because I don't recall anyone talking about that pressure taps. And I feel like if people start being really honest with themselves about how often they tap to pressure, and they realize that actually if they improve their breath work, like they can be more honest with themselves about why they're tapping, and like they'll reduce the amount of times they'll tap. Like I've no doubt about that. They will tap way less, and they'll be in a better state of mind generally in rolling. But like they kind of like, I think a lot of them need to like be honest about, like I said to you, like I remember tapping as a BJJ purple belt at a judo club to scarf hold. And like you try and say to yourself, oh, it was this or it was that or whatever, but it's like at the end of the day, it's just like it was just horrible, and I just
Mhm.
tapped because it was horrible and I didn't like it. Um, but I think that the minute that you openly have that conversation with yourself, with your students, whatever, it's like we can actually all move forward now
Mhm.
on that.
And I think you also run into the problem that um, there aren't a lot of people that have really good pressure. And
Right,
so it's very easy to only train with people. And then let's say theoretically, the person that you're going with, if you're a pretty decent purple belt, especially if you're young, they would also have to be able to pass your guard to generally
right,
apply that pressure too. And that, the athleticism of passing guard tends to leave people too. And so I feel like so few people experience legitimate pressure, and that's where their mindset of like, oh yeah,
right.
I've never ever tapped the pressure and stuff. And like, yeah, but you've
Correct.
never really felt it.
Right,
Like when you really feel it, you go, oh, this is not shoulder on my chin, turn my head pressure. This is
right,
not, it's not that. This is a
right,
completely
100%.
different thing.
Right. Yeah, completely. Yeah, I think that's again, I think that's really why we need actual positional sparring of that scarf hold position in order to like you have to bridge the gap for people.
Oh yeah.
And when they start seeing I have a purple belt who is a nightmare to tap in that position, and he didn't used to be.
Hmm.
But like he's an absolute nightmare to tap, and it's because he's just spent time working on his work, doing his breath work, working on that position, actually getting white belts, getting them to stick him in that position, telling them like, what's the point in him just going and tapping them? He gets them in that position, big heavy white belt. He's in heaven. He's like, let me, just stick me in this position. Get your knees off the mat. Get your iliac crest right up in my armpit. And then he's like, yeah, let's go from here, and just don't give that position up. He just sits
Uh-huh.
there and tries to work on his defense. And yeah, he's just grown a lot. And I think when people see that, like they put him in that, you get black belts put him in there, and it's like he's not going to tap, and he's not like the biggest guy in the world. Um, but you're really going to have to submit him. He's very good in that position, but it's like his whole game is very relaxed and very heavy as a result. Now he gets on top of me if he passes my guard. It's grim. He's just really good, like Henry is at like that relaxing game. But like you say, you've got to they just I think that's absolutely right. You have to go to positions like neon belly or the scarf hold and start really drilling it, being stuck there,
Hmm.
uh, and practicing the breathing.
I am a man betrayed by the art that he loves. My name's Josh McKinney, and as most of you know, I've been cursed with the burden of fixing jiu-jitsu. With your help, we're going to heel hook the fake black belts, every single one of them. Those mat bullies that you're dealing with, we're going to pressure tap them. In Reddit BJJ, we're burning it to the ground unless they allow me to post my podcast episodes and quit deleting them. But I can't do this alone. Every like, every comment, every 5-star review, it fuels the mission, it powers the algorithm, and honestly, it keeps me from turning to the dark side and opening a karate school in a strip mall between a CBD store and Spencer's Gifts. So if you believe in better jiu-jitsu, review the podcast, do it for the future, do it for the children, but most importantly, do it so you never have to hear someone say "os" ever again. That makes that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you this, Glenn. And obviously you feel free to not tell us if you don't want to, but what the heck is an AI company? What are you do? What does that mean? What is, that's still a very new term. I don't know, that's like, selling somebody like, oh yeah, I work in business, like, well, what is that? What is business,
Yeah, so I mean, I've got a small bit of the business is this. So this is the gym. If you can see it.
Okay,
Got
that's
down in, yeah,
beautiful.
I
I
thought I'd
love
come
that.
down and thank you very much. Yeah, it's an old Masonic hall, so you have to get your knees out when you come in. It's just what we do, right? You have to honor the building.
Honor the building. I
So,
like
right?
that.
Yeah. So we don't do that really. I'd like to, but yeah, I wouldn't have any students. So you'd be like, oh, what's the freak doing now? Yeah. So basically, so this is the downstairs. We got like a couple of basements that I haven't done anything with yet, and then upstairs is basically uh, where the what I call the real business that pays for everything is. So that's our AI company. So what do we do? So it's called Dream Agility. Um, we do an awful lot in the gym space now. That was never the original intention, but it's just happened because I'm a black belt, and I guess you get kind of known around places at training camps, you get talking. But essentially, we have a machine learning platform. So, what does that do? Basically, if you've ever, I don't know if you advertise on Google with your gym
Mhm.
or any of your shops, but if you sell any product, but essentially, if you look at conversion rates with Google, conversion rates, Google, Facebook, all of them, they all work the same. They're usually about 3%. And someone will say to me, "Oh, well, mine's 5% or mine's 1% or whatever." But the point is the vast majority of money, if you put $100 on Google Ads, right? By definition, pretty much, 97% of it at any one point in time doesn't actually work.
Mhm.
And so what our technology basically does is starts removing all the waste safely. And so, because why do you want it? And so back in 2017, I came up with this idea. I mean, this is kind of like Charlie Munger's. I don't know if you ever follow any of Charlie Munger's stuff. He was Warren Buffett's sidekick, and he's written this book on like mental models. Essentially, it's called something like Poor Charlie's Almanac or something. But it's a book of just it's a book about books you should read with all mental models extracted from them. And he covers like marketing, psychology, you name it. He's a real book buff. Like him and Buffett used to read like 10 hours a day or something. He's just died recently, Munger. But one of his things is always invert on problems. He says always invert. So like when people say to me, I'm going off on one now, but how do I get good at jujitsu? It's like, well, actually, just don't be bad at jujitsu. It's I suck at jujitsu. Remove the sucking and don't worry about doing so much. Just suck less, right? You don't have to be. So this is the thing I feel like happens the same with Google Ads. People think they've got to spend all this money to get the 3%. And we looked at back in 2017, we looked at $600 million worth of Google Ads spend that we'd had through our platform all over the world, Australia, US, UK, Europe, you name it. We looked at all this spend, and like every 3% came from just 5% of the entire words in the account. If they had a 10% conversion rate because they were like some kind of lead gen, then that came from 15% of the words that like once had a single conversion, entire life of the account. And so what the technology does is basically automates the process of switching it off. We trialed this with a company called Chemist Warehouse. They turn over $3 billion a year down in Australia, third biggest retailer down there. And they had something like 178% increase in sales at a reduction in cost when we put this live. And it's pretty staggering. And because what we then do is we take the waste and we bid super hard, not all of the waste, but we take some of the waste and we bid super hard on that 3% that we know works. And so this for me is like it's kind of crazy that no one my wife always says no one would be stupid enough to invent this because the problem is the entire industry broadly manages on a percentage of spend model. So
Yeah.
if you're spending 100,000 a month on Google ads and I'm your agency, well, I'm trying to take 10% of that off the bat.
Hmm.
So like if I reduced your spend, even like if I just sort of like had a go at it, I'm making less money.
Hmm. That makes sense.
So I feel like the entire industry is kind of locked in a business model that doesn't actually work. It doesn't really work for, it certainly doesn't work for the client, but it kind of works great for Google and it works great for the agencies. Um, and so that's really what we deal with. So yeah.
That's really interesting. That's a obviously as a gym owner doing the podcast, doing stuff online, you do so much with marketing, so much of Russell Brunson has a quote that 99% of the world's problems could be solved with better marketing. And when you have
Right.
a jujitsu school, when you have these things that require marketing, you agree. You're like, yeah, at least 99% of my problems could be solved with better marketing. That's such a cool product. What does the conversion rate hope to get to when you are running your AI from the 3%?
So what we really do is we look to drive ROAS. So even in lead gen, like another thing we do is we actually track to membership. So the reason
Oh,
we,
okay.
yeah, yeah, we track to membership. I'm not really interested in leads. I mean, leads are a means to an
Yes.
end. But like there's lots of agencies out there that can get you cheap leads in almost any market. But then you start ringing them and they're like, "Oh, I wasn't interested in your product. I've never heard of you. What is it you
Yes.
do again?" Right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's like you're being told that like these people were interested, they were signing up.
Mhm.
So yeah, we kind of work with. So one of the things we do is we provide tracking all the way through. And we do this in lots of different lead gen, but we try and turn every lead generation campaign into essentially what we call an e-commerce campaign. Because in e-commerce, you track everything online. But just because the deal goes offline, those values still need to be passed back into Google Ads. I don't want to switch ads off because the cost per conversion looks high when
Mhm.
they're actually people who are in the top 10% of wealth and they're giving you money all day long when you sign them, right?
Mhm.
And another factor we do is we get gyms to like look at their lifetime value as well. So we find that because most gyms work on a cost per lead model, they've never looked at lifetime value.
That makes sense.
And so when you start to look at lifetime value and you know that like a certain keyword is bringing you in $30,000 a year of memberships, it's like all of a sudden we have really interesting conversations with gym owners. And sometimes the gym owners like, hey, how much does Google say I can go to on this? And we're like, well, if you really want to be crazy, you can go at $35 a click bid price. And like we have gym owners who are
Wow.
like, I want to bid $35 on this keyword. And we're like, yeah, but you're only going to get an extra two impressions on Google's model that say $19, right? So
Uh-huh.
like we could do 19 and they're like, I kind of like to test doing just 35 and just have my name there no matter what on this search query. So it really changes the whole dynamics because $35 with that same gym owner when you're doing cost per lead, they'd be like, are you insane? Are you going to put me out of business? Right? Because like
Of
$35
course.
is crazy. But like when they start knowing that like, hey, average gym membership to me is worth $3,500 even after my cancellations because we've gone and run the numbers together. It's like it just changes the whole way they look at it. And bear in mind, everyone else that's in the gym market, like, so say, for example, you're in St. Louis, like, I can guarantee everybody else in the gym market, if they even look at it, is working on a cost per lead at best. That's like the best.
Hmm.
But they're not looking at like how much they really, like, the minute you work on a cost per lead, you're not looking at value.
Totally. Totally.
And then another thing we kind of do is get gym owners, particularly in jiu-jitsu, to change how they think about the market. So like I'll throw my good buddy Rory Singer under a bus on this. So he was the first person to get me involved in running a gym campaign. I don't Do you know Rory Singer at all?
I don't know. I feel like I've heard the name, but I don't know him.
He fought in the UFC. He was on the
Okay.
Ultimate Fighter. So
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
that's how I know the
he
name.
was yeah, he was Forrest Griffin's like main sparring partner,
Uh-huh.
and like, his brother Adam's like his both their coach, obviously. But Rory like basically told me I was going to run his Google ad campaign. I was like, oh, we really manage like these super big campaigns. Where he's like, no, you're going to manage it. Yeah, like okay. So I start with Rory, and one of the things I said to Rory right at the beginning was like, get I want to get us actually talking at like even at Krav Maga. If someone does a search for Krav Maga or Kung Fu or karate or anything in this area, I really want to make sure that we come up and like not even pay for it, like just on the SEO listings. And Rory's like, I don't want anything about Krav Maga on my website. Like, I'm like, okay. And so we revisit the conversation. Like, and so I'm saying, but like, really, the thing with it is somebody searching for Krav Maga wants realistic self-defense, right? They just think that Krav Maga is what they need.
Yeah.
So all we really want to be doing there is actually putting an article out that says, you're looking for Krav Maga in St. Louis. It's great you're taking your self-defense seriously. It's
Hmm.
great that you're probably thinking about defending your family, other members of the community. This is all brilliant. However, there are much better options available than Krav Maga,
Yeah.
and here is why. And you take them on that journey, and you can do that for every single martial art
Yeah.
that's out there. Because at the end of the day, we all basically believe that you need Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's the healthy MMA. You're not getting brain damaged. It's
Hmm.
going to take care of 99% of the problems out there, right? Versus the other martial arts. And I'm not getting injured like in MMA. Nowhere near that degree. And so that becomes a conversation that appeals to almost anybody that takes self-defense seriously. But a lot of the time, they're searching for karate. They're searching for karate for their kids. When they say karate, they don't mean karate. They often mean, I just want some kind of self-defense. I want some jujitsu for my child. And then when you actually start saying, well, the thing about karate is that all it's really doing is teaching them that when they're in trouble, they punch and kick, right?
Hmm.
That might not be the best way to deal with somebody who's subtly trying to bully them a bit or grabs their wrist or whatever, and they just punch them in the face and they're outside the principal's office. So it's taking that message to parents, and jujitsu is gold. But as an industry, we've kind of got to get out just talking to ourselves and people who are just looking for jujitsu. So taekwondo, karate, Krav Maga, Aikido, I don't care what it is. Even judo, even if you don't offer judo classes, like you might be the only place that someone who's searching for judo could actually train at and get a similar workout. And you could say like, this is what we don't even like about judo. Like I love judo, but like I don't like some of the rules in terms of the groundwork and some of the elements of it for like self-defense. Some of it's great, some of it's not. And in terms of longevity, probably less injuries in jiu-jitsu again. So like let's talk about, we have a judo class on a Thursday or whatever it might be, but like it's judo for jiu-jitsu, or we don't do judo, but we do jiu-jitsu version of it, and this is the relationship. But we should be marketing to all those people. So sorry, I've gone on a long, but
That
I'm
was
kind of passionate about it.
10 out of 10. Love that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, people that are school owners, I'm sure, are saying the exact same thing. You're speaking the language. I think that is, man, I have paid obnoxious amounts of money for martial arts and jujitsu specific
Right.
marketing agencies, and they care about lead generation.
Right.
And when you are in a low income area, it becomes very evident to you that lead generation is irrelevant, because if I put free class on my gym,
Right.
people on crack riding their bikes literally pull up, barge through the door, and
Right.
go, I'm here for my free class. And you go, and you literally go, free class of what? And then they go, I don't know, but it said free class on the outside. And then I'll be like, yeah. Come back at 6 p.m. tonight. And they never come back, like, oh, yeah, I'll be there. And then they ride their bike looking for the next free thing. And
Right.
so leads are irrelevant. And
Right.
it's like, I need quality leads. And that is they'll blame, oh, well, your sales process isn't good or whatever. I'm like, brother, you sent in somebody who, when I told him the price, looked at me and he said, I don't have any money.
Right.
Well, then what are we doing here, brother? Like,
Right.
what are
100%.
we? And so that to me is like, leads are not king, and yeah, it makes so much sense, what you guys are doing, being able
Thank
to
you.
kind of qualify leads and tell the customer what they're actually looking for. And
Right.
that's, I think, what nobody's doing either in the jiu-jitsu space is we all advertise best Brazilian jiu-jitsu in my area. And it's
Right.
like, guys, it can't be that. There's no way that we all have the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And even if you do, who
Right.
cares?
Right.
Like, what does that matter? And so yeah, I get your point of view, and I
And
get your
you see it with kids programs as well. It's like when you actually talk to parents about what their fears are like a kids program with 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds potentially. Like when you don't know, when you talk to them, they want to see that the classes are broken out and there's a class specifically for that age group, and
Mhm.
that you've got separate landing pages for like 3 to 5s, and there's a curriculum versus when they're on 4 to 6 and 7 to 9 or whatever. You're breaking that whole thing out. You're showing that there's actually a progression going through it. You've got the kids program nailed. There's so much that you can do to, like, the standards are so low generally.
Yeah.
Most martial arts clubs, like even the jiu-jitsu ones, a lot of the time give you the impression that they've just got a big hall full of kids, because you wouldn't know looking at the images or any of that. It's just like, you know, so.
Man, that makes a lot of sense. So all right, let me ask you this. If somebody was interested in the stuff that you were just mentioning and in your company that is just school owner specifically, how would they reach out to you? And what would be
Yeah,
the
you can get me. I mean, I am the only Glyn Powditch, I think, in the world.
all right,
So as
perfect.
long as you like, I'm the number one, pretty much. I'm the Donald
You would definitely
of Glyn
submit any other
Powditches.
one, right? You would
Right.
definitely tap out any with pressure, tap
Yeah.
out any of the other
I,
ones.
I'm the Hickson basically in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I mean, in literally any field, I can mold my name to being probably the best that there is.
That's
Provided it's the
nice.
full name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly, you bring the middle name in, it's done. So yeah, you can get me at Glyn at dreamagility.com. So dream as in when you sleep at night, agility like a tightrope walker, Glyn at dreamagility.com. But yeah, connect to me on social media. I'm on like LinkedIn and Facebook and all the main platforms. So
All right, man. Glenn, anything that you want to say to finish?
no, just thank you so much for having me on. It's awesome. I follow your podcast before, so I've watched it, watching the rise. So yeah,
Man,
cool.
I appreciate that. And yeah, Glenn, I really appreciate you coming on. I don't know if I even asked a single question on this, but I feel like I learned so much. And so
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I just talk, but
man, when you were going, I was like, oh, let's let this guy cook. Let's let him go. That was perfect. Thank
I'll
you.
have to get out to St. Louis sometime because you got the chess club there as well. So
Well, I don't do that, but the jujitsu here is good. You would have a
well, you got
blast.
it all,
You
right?
would
I
have
can
a
do
blast
jiu-jitsu.
training.
You got St. Louis chess club.
Come do a podcast in person with
That
in
would be
my
awesome.
studio. I think that
That
would
would
be a
be awesome.
blast. All
I
right.
will do that.
Well, I'll hold you to it then, Glenn.